Dr. Lee rubbed her tired eyes, staring at the screen showing video feeds from workshops across the globe. The basement lab in Colorado hummed with activity as her team worked around the clock, the sound of typing and machinery creating a steady rhythm in the background. The air was thick with the smell of coffee and electronics. "Andrea, patch me through to Port-au-Prince," she called out, stretching her stiff neck. Her joints cracked in protest after hours of sitting hunched over screens. Commander Andrea Carlson, her right-hand engineer, tapped a few keys with practiced ease. Her fingers danced across the keyboard like she'd done this 1,000 times before. The main screen lit up with Jean-Claude's grinning face, his workshop behind him filled with gutted car parts and modified electronics. Tools and wires hung from every available surface, making it look like a mad scientist's garage sale. "Doc, you'll love this," he said, holding up what looked like a souped-up car battery with exposed wires and extra metal plates. His eyes sparkled with pride. "We took your design and made it run on half the power. My guys figured out how to use old alternators to boost the output. Turns out all those junked cars were good for something. Who knew being a pack rat would help save the world?" Dr. Lee leaned forward, excitement breaking through her exhaustion. The dark circles under her eyes seemed to fade as hope lit up her face. "That's brilliant. Can you share the specs with—" "Already sent them to Yuki in Tokyo," Jean-Claude cut in, looking mighty pleased with himself. He gave a playful wink to the camera. "She's combining it with some fancy cooling system her team cooked up. Those guys never sleep, I swear. Must be all that green tea." Another screen blinked to life. "Speaking of which," Yuki chimed in, her workspace cluttered with circuit boards and multiple monitors displaying lines of code that scrolled endlessly. "The Brazilian crew just sent over some killer code that'll help mask our power signatures. Those hackers are scary good. They make it look like child's play." Dr. Lee smiled. 6 months ago, these people had never met. Now they worked like a well-oiled machine, sharing breakthroughs faster than the aliens could track them. The global network they'd built still amazed her. It was like watching the world's biggest group project, minus the usual drama and slackers. Her tablet buzzed, an urgent message from Berlin. Her eyes widened as she read it, heart racing. She had to read it twice to make sure she wasn't seeing things. "Everyone listen up," she announced, voice carrying across all channels. "Berlin team just took down a scout ship. Their tweaked disruptor worked perfectly. The ship's grounded and intact, everything we need for study. And get this, not a scratch on it." The video feeds erupted in cheers and high fives. Lab techs hugged each other while engineers pumped their fists in the air. Someone in Moscow started singing, and soon others joined in, each in their own language. For the first time since the invasion, they had a real shot at turning things around. Maybe humanity wasn't down for the count after all. Those aliens were about to learn that humans don't go quietly into the night. Yet as hope sparked in secret labs worldwide, the real front line lay far from Colorado. In Berlin's fog-shrouded streets, another team prepared to prove humanity's resilience was no fluke. The Berlin night was thick with fog as Marcus Reyes led his team toward the downed ship. Smoke still curled from its twisted hull, the metal cooling with soft pings and creaks that echoed through the eerie silence. The wreckage had carved a deep gash in the earth, leaving a trail of broken trees and scorched ground that stretched for nearly half a mile. "Movement inside," whispered Sophie, their scout, her thermal scanner glowing faintly in the darkness. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted the settings. One life sign, weak but steady. Looks like it's trapped in the cockpit section. Marcus touched his earpiece, brushing away droplets of mist that had collected on his jacket. The dampness had soaked through to his skin, making him shiver. "Doctor, Lee, we're approaching the craft. Pilot's alive. The crash site is pretty messy, but the ship looks mostly intact. No signs of backup coming." "Be careful," Dr. Lee's voice crackled through, full of static that made her words barely understandable. "Captain Nwosu is 20 minutes out with heavy equipment. Secure the site. We can't risk losing this opportunity. It might be our only chance to study their tech up close." The team spread out, their modified EMP weapons ready, boots crunching softly on debris and twisted metal. Marcus approached the cracked cockpit, his flashlight beam cutting through the mist like a knife. Inside, a Krathak pilot lay slumped over the controls, dark blue fluid seeping from a nasty head wound. The alien's breathing came in ragged gasps that fogged up the damaged glass. "It's breathing," Marcus reported, trying to get a better look through the spider-webbed glass. "But hurt bad. The cockpit's pretty banged up. We might need cutting tools to get it out." The alien's 4 eyes fluttered open, focusing on Marcus with an unsettling intensity. It made a rattling sound, like marbles in a tin can, reaching for something in its damaged flight suit with trembling fingers. "Weapon!" someone shouted, guns clicking as they aimed at the wounded creature. "Wait!" Marcus held up his hand, heart pounding against his ribs. The alien wasn't reaching for a gun. It was holding out what looked like a medical device, its hands shaking badly. "It needs help. Stand down, everyone. This isn't the time for revenge." Captain Nwosu arrived with his engineering team just as they were pulling the pilot from the wreckage. The alien was surprisingly light, like lifting a child, its exoskeleton cracked in several places, making dry, scraping sounds as they moved it. The sound reminded Marcus of stepping on autumn leaves. "Kill it," growled Hans, one of the Berlin fighters, his knuckles white on his weapon. His face was twisted with hate in the dim light. "After what they did to Hamburg." "No." Marcus cut him off, stepping between Hans and the injured alien. His voice was firm, but gentle. "We're better than that. We have to be. This is what makes us different from them." He turned to their medic. "Jana, can you help it?" While Jana worked on the pilot, Nwosu's team swarmed the ship like busy ants, pulling panels off and examining the alien technology with barely contained excitement. "Amazing," he muttered, examining the flight controls with a handheld scanner. "The neural interface is unlike anything we've seen. Look at these connection ports. They're organic. Dr. Lee, are you getting this?" "Crystal clear," she replied through the comm, excitement evident in her voice despite the static. "The power core configuration, it's beautiful. Those energy readings are off the charts. We need that system intact. This could change everything." They worked through the night, carefully dismantling key components under portable floodlights. The pilot watched them silently, allowing Jana to treat its wounds with a mix of human and salvaged alien medical supplies. Its skin had an odd metallic sheen under their work lights, shifting colors like oil on water. Once, when she hit a particularly tender spot, it made a sound that was surprisingly human-like, a whimper of pain that made them all pause and look at each other uncomfortably. "The core's ready for transport," Nwosu announced as dawn approached, wiping grease from his hands with an old rag. "We can reassemble it at the old airfield in Brandenburg. Underground hangar should hide the power signature. The concrete walls are thick enough to mask any emissions." Marcus nodded, then looked at the pilot. Some wanted revenge, but others had shown kindness. Maybe that's what made humans different, the capacity for both. In the growing light, he could see the alien studying them with what looked almost like curiosity in its quartet of eyes. He typed out a short message to Commander Andrea's headquarters, his fingers cold and stiff on the tablet. "We have it. Both the pilot and the tech, and we did it our way." While Marcus's triumphant report spread through Earth's resistance, the Krathak learned of their latest defeat from on high. Far above the planet, alien scientists scrambled to analyze the unsettling human victory. Zextal's claws clicked against the metal floor as they paced in their research chamber aboard the flagship. Holographic displays filled the room with an eerie blue glow, showing the wreckage of their latest lost scout ship. The twisted metal and scattered debris told a story that made their stomach churn with worry. Each new image seemed worse than the last, revealing damage patterns that spoke of careful planning rather than blind luck. "Impossible," muttered one of the Dominion scientists, his scaled head shaking in disbelief. "These readings suggest a targeted electromagnetic pulse. But humans are mere—" His voice trailed off as he zoomed in on another section of the wreckage. The blast patterns showed a level of technical understanding that shouldn't have been possible for such a primitive species. Prey? Zextal cut in, their voice carrying a hint of frustration. That's what we kept saying. Yet here we are, examining another defeat, the third this week alone. At what point do we stop lying to ourselves? Millar burst into the chamber, his massive frame filling the doorway. His left arm was still wrapped in healing bandages from his last encounter with the humans, the fabric stained with dried blood. Several of his scales were cracked and missing, showing just how close the fight had been. More excuses, researcher. While you study your charts, I lose more warriors. Good warriors, trained hunters who deserved better deaths. These aren't excuses, Zextal said quietly, pulling up more data streams with quick gestures. Look at the pattern. They didn't just get lucky. They knew exactly where to hit us. See these impact points? Each one targeted a critical system. The timing, the placement, it's all too perfect to be random. The screens showed detailed breakdowns of the scout ship's final moments. The humans had perfectly timed their attack, targeting the ship's most vulnerable systems with shocking accuracy. The simulation played out again and again, each viewing making the pit in Zextal's stomach grow deeper. The attack had been quick, brutal, and frighteningly well planned. I warned the council, Zextal continued, their inner eyelids blinking rapidly as they analyzed the data. Humans don't behave like normal prey. They learn, they adapt, they share knowledge. Each attack shows new tactics building on what worked before. They're not just fighting. They're evolving their strategy with every encounter. Millar slammed his good fist against a nearby console, making the holographic display flicker and dance with static. Then we hunt them harder, crush their hiding places before they can strike again, send in the heavy assault units. We'll smoke them out like the vermin they are. Vrock's voice crackled over the ship's comm system, filled with the usual mix of authority and religious zeal. The hunt must continue. Our honor demands it. Failure is not an option. The ancient ways must be preserved. Zextal fought back a wave of frustration. While the warriors clung to their traditions, the evidence was clear. Humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had predicted. The signs were there for anyone willing to see them, written in broken ships and dead warriors. Working quickly, Zextal copied the scout ship's data to a private device. The logs showed everything, the precise way humans had coordinated their attack, how they'd exploited weaknesses that should have been unknown to them. Each data point painted a clearer picture of their growing capabilities. The humans weren't just getting lucky, they were getting smarter. Sir, one of the junior scientists called out, his voice shaking slightly. We've found something else. The humans didn't just disable the ship, they salvaged it, took specific components. They knew exactly what they were looking for. The attack wasn't just about destruction, it was about gathering intelligence. Millar's good hand clenched into a fist, scales bristling with rage. They dare steal our technology? I will lead the next hunt myself. We'll show them the price of such insults. They'll learn what it means to mock the Krathak. But Zextal barely heard him. They were too focused on the implications. Humans weren't just fighting back. They were actively studying Krathak technology, learning from each encounter, getting stronger. Each defeat made them more dangerous, not less. The humans were turning the hunters' own weapons against them, piece by stolen piece. These weren't the actions of simple prey. This was the response of an intelligent species fighting for Sioux. Realizing humanity's growing threat, the Krathak redoubled their efforts. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Sahara sands, Dr. Lee and her team raced to forge the technology that might turn the tide. Deep in the Sahara Desert, hidden beneath massive sand dunes, an underground hangar buzzed with intense activity. Sweat glistened on Dr. Lee's forehead as he meticulously studied the strange, intricate mix of human and alien technology spread across the makeshift workbenches. The air was thick with the pungent smells of hot metal and machine oil, while cooling fans whirred endlessly against the oppressive desert heat. "Pass me that wrench, will you?" he called out to one of the local engineers working alongside him. The vast, cavernous chamber, once an abandoned mining facility, now served as humanity's most advanced and secretive aircraft laboratory. Strings of bright LED lights crisscrossed the high ceiling, casting sharp, angular shadows across the cluttered, busy space. Captain Elias Nwosu stood nearby, his dark eyes fixed intently on the hybrid craft slowly taking shape before them. Its sleek, angular frame combined the distinctive edges of a human stealth bomber with the organic flowing curves of the Krathak alien design. The metal skin seemed to shift colors and shimmer under the different angles of the harsh lighting, a mesmerizing side effect of the exotic alien alloys they had carefully salvaged and incorporated. The anti-gravity drive just keeps fighting against our control systems, Dr. Lee muttered frustratedly, adjusting another delicate connection. It's like trying to make oil and water mix. Every time we think we've finally got it stabilized, the power flow goes completely haywire again. Keep at it, you guys, Elias encouraged, rolling up his sleeves to lend a hand. We've come too damn far to give up on this now. Suddenly, a crackling voice came through their secure communication system. This is Commander Carlson checking in. How's our baby coming along over there? Slowly but surely, Commander, Elias replied, wiping the grease from his calloused hands. The whole team's been working around the clock on this. Haven't had more than 4 hours of sleep at a time in days. Dr. Lee gathered the exhausted engineers for another attempt at fully integrating the systems. They had been at this for what felt like an eternity, tirelessly trying to seamlessly merge Earth's advanced navigation and control technologies with the alien propulsion and power generation. Each failure taught them something new, though the mounting cost in burnt-out components and frayed nerves was starting to seriously worry him. The problem isn't just technical, you know, said Amara, one of the local experts. Her fingers flew across the screens of 3 different tablets at once. We're basically trying to force together 2 completely different fundamental ways of thinking about the physics of flight. The Krathak tech, it's almost like it has a mind of its own, you know? A young, nervous-looking technician spoke up from the back of the group, his voice shaking slightly. Should we even be using their technology at all? What if there's something morally wrong with it? What if it's corrupting us somehow? The room fell silent at the uncomfortable question. Dr. Lee set down his tools and turned to face the concerned group. I understand the ethical concerns, I really do. But right now, we need every single advantage we can possibly get. Sometimes survival means having to make some very hard choices. Besides, he added with a grim, humorless smile, the Krathak didn't seem too worried about our ethics when they were busy bombing our cities into oblivion. They worked through the night, making endless adjustments, rigorously testing connections, and learning from each and every mistake. Discarded coffee cups and empty energy drink cans piled up as the hours ticked relentlessly by. The long-awaited breakthrough finally came just before the first hints of dawn, when the biting desert cold still clung stubbornly to the facility's reinforced walls. Look at these readings, Dr. Lee exclaimed, nearly knocking over his 10th cup of coffee in his excitement. The control panel was showing steady, stable power flow between both the human and alien systems. We've done it. The integration is holding. It's actually holding. Captain Nwosu immediately climbed up into the sleek cockpit for the first test flight. The hybrid craft hummed to life, its powerful engines giving off an otherworldly glowing blue light that painted the hangar walls in rippling ethereal patterns. The massive hangar doors above them slowly opened with a grinding mechanical sound, revealing a narrow strip of star-filled desert sky beyond. Remember, keep it low and slow, Elias, Dr. Lee advised through the radio, his hands gripping the console tight enough to whiten his knuckles. We just need to prove that it works. No fancy flying maneuvers, no matter how tempting that might be. The craft rose smoothly, its revolutionary anti-gravity drive working in perfect harmony with the human-designed controls. Captain Nwosu guided it through the opening and out into the cool night air, leaving behind a faint, glowing trail of alien-infused blue energy. How's she handling out there, Elias? Commander Carlson's tense voice came through the comm system. Like nothing I've ever flown before, Commander, Nwosu reported, his voice filled with a sense of wonder and awe. She's responding perfectly to every single command. The neural interface. It's almost like the ship knows what I want to do before I even do it. The test flight only lasted around 15 minutes, but it was more than enough. When the craft touched back down in the hangar, cheers and jubilant shouts of triumph erupted from the exhausted but elated team. Dr. Lee watched with immense pride as his hard-working engineers hugged and celebrated, their weariness forgotten in the moment of hard-won success. "Commander," he spoke into his radio, fighting to keep his voice steady with emotion. "The test was a complete success. We've done it." "Outstanding work, everyone," Andrea replied, and for the first time in months her voice carried a distinct note of real hope. "This changes everything. The Krathak won't know what hit them." Their first successful test brought a brief sense of triumph, but Commander Carlson's sensors soon revealed the enemy's next move, forcing them all back into high alert. Commander Andrea Carlson stared at the blinking red dot on her tactical display, her jaw clenched tight. The massive Krathak warship hung in low orbit above the Sahara like a predator ready to strike, right where they didn't want it. The morning sun cast long shadows across her weathered face as she studied the movement patterns, noting how the alien vessel's position matched their intelligence reports perfectly. "They've spotted something," she said into her secure comm, keeping her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Her fingers traced the predicted attack path across the screen. "Dr. Lee, how much longer?" "The software integration is at 67%. Dr. Lee's voice crackled through, thick with exhaustion. Static buzzed in the background as his team worked frantically. "We need another hour. These alien systems are fighting us every step of the way. It's like trying to teach Spanish to a fish." Andrea's hands tightened on the edge of the command table until her knuckles went white. The metal creaked under her grip. "You've got 20 minutes. They're coming. And they're not known for their patience." In the underground hangar, Dr. Lee wiped sweat from his forehead as his fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of alien code reflecting in his glasses. Empty coffee cups littered his workstation. Captain Nwosu paced beside the hybrid craft like a nervous parent, its sleek form a strange mix of human and Krathak technology. The stolen alien parts had cost them dearly in lives, but they had to work. The alternative was extinction. Above ground, the desert erupted in a storm of movement. Millar led 3 hunting parties toward the human settlement, his troops moving with practiced skill through the sand. Their armor gleamed dully in the harsh sunlight, but something felt wrong in his gut. The heat signatures were too perfect, too still, like a painting rather than living prey. His years of experience screamed danger. "Spread out," he ordered, mandibles clicking with unease. "These readings are dash dash dash." The first EMP burst caught his left flank without warning, dropping 5 warriors instantly. Their advanced armor locked up, trapping them in rigid poses like statues in a museum. The sight made his blood run cold. Sparks danced across their frozen forms as systems overloaded. "It's a trap," Millar roared, his voice carrying across the dunes. Sand whipped around him as his troops scrambled for cover. "Fall back and regroup. They've learned our methods." But the humans had planned their ambush well. Drone decoys buzzed overhead like angry wasps, drawing fire while broadcasting false heat signatures. Some looked like children playing, others like elderly civilians. Perfect bait. Every time the Krathak adjusted their sensors, the pattern shifted like desert mirages. "The illusions are working," Andrea told her militia leaders, allowing herself a small smile. Her voice carried calm authority through the comm channels. "Keep them confused. Drive them into the kill zones. Remember your training. Don't get cocky." Local fighters emerged from hidden bunkers, their weapons fitted with the electromagnetic disruptors they'd reverse-engineered from crashed Krathak tech. They struck fast and vanished back into prepared positions, fighting like ghosts. The Krathak's superior weapons meant nothing if they couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. Years of being hunted had taught humans to be creative. Millar watched in growing frustration as his forces stumbled into one trap after another, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. His warriors fired at mirages while real attacks came from unexpected angles, making them look like rookies on their first hunt. The shame burned deep. In the hangar, Dr. Lee called out with triumph, "Integration complete. Captain, she's ready. The systems are talking to each other." His team erupted in cheers, months of work finally paying off. Nwosu jumped into the cockpit as the ceiling panels began to slide open with a grinding of gears. Desert light poured in from above. Malar caught sight of the opening ground and realized too late what it meant. His antenna went rigid with alarm. The hybrid craft rose from its hiding place like a phoenix, its engines humming with an otherworldly tone that made teeth vibrate. Dust swirled in its wake. Human stealth systems merged with Krethak power, made it nearly invisible to their sensors, a ghost in their own machines. "All units fall back," Malar ordered, but the retreat quickly turned chaotic as panic spread through his ranks. More EMP bursts dropped his warriors like flies, while the hybrid craft picked off their heavy weapons with terrifying accuracy. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this. His proud hunters scattered like startled prey. Andrea's voice rang out on all resistance frequencies, strong and clear. "To all humans fighting for Earth, this is what unity looks like. This is what we can achieve together. The Krethak thought they could hunt us. Today we proved them wrong. Today we showed them that humanity isn't prey. We're the apex predators they never saw coming." She watched with fierce pride as Captain Nwosu's craft chased the last Krethak troops beyond the horizon, sending them running with their tails between their legs. Their first major victory was complete, and it wouldn't be their last. The hunters had become the hunted. A new chapter in the resistance had begun. In the wake of that stunning victory, whispers of growing human power echoed through alien halls. The Dominion Council could no longer dismiss Earth's defiance. Zextal's claws clicked nervously against the polished stone floor of the council chamber, the sound echoing in the tense atmosphere. Around the circular room, 9 Dominion elders sat on elevated platforms, their scaled faces twisted in concern as they reviewed the latest battle reports from Earth. The golden light from the chamber's crystalline fixtures cast long shadows across their ancient features, making their worried expressions even more dramatic. "Impossible!" Elder Kevak slammed his fist down, making the nearby data screens flicker and spark. "How could primitive humans disable 3 more of our hunter ships? These vessels were our finest. Our best engineers spent decades perfecting them." Varrock stood in the center, his usual commanding presence somewhat diminished by the string of defeats. His shoulders sagged ever so slightly under the weight of his failures, and his ceremonial armor seemed to hang heavy on his frame. "These setbacks are temporary. The humans simply got lucky with stolen technology. They're scavengers, nothing more. Like vermin stealing scraps." Malar, still bearing fresh plasma burns and a limp from his last encounter, spoke up from his position near the chamber entrance. His wounds still smoked faintly, filling the air with an acrid smell. "With respect, High Commander, their attacks show clear patterns now. They're not just lucky. They're learning our weaknesses. Every failed hunt teaches them more about us. They study our wreckage like scholars." Worried murmurs rippled through the chamber like waves in a disturbed pond. Several younger attendants exchanged nervous glances. Zextal stepped forward, datapad in hand, trying to keep his voice from shaking. "The humans have successfully reversed-engineered portions of our propulsion systems. They've created hybrid vessels that combine their stealth capabilities with our flight technology. Their learning curve is remarkable. They've done in months what took us generations." "Preposterous." Vrock spun around, his ceremonial armor clanking and rattling. "They're barely more than animals. No prey species has ever done this before. They should be cowering in caves, not stealing our technology." "The evidence is clear," Zextal continued, his voice steady despite his racing heart. He swiped through multiple screens of data, filling the air with glowing projections. "Our sensors detected human-made craft using modified Krethak drives. They're adapting faster than any species we've encountered. Their innovation is unlike anything in our records. Look at these combat footage. They're even improving on our designs." Elder Tizen leaned forward, his ancient scales gleaming in the dim light. Perhaps we should consider opening diplomatic channels, find a way to end this without more bloodshed. We could save face by calling it a strategic withdrawal. Never! Varrock's roar echoed off the chamber walls, making several younger attendants flinch and step back. The great hunt cannot end in negotiation. The humans must be brought to heel. Our ancestors demand it. Would you have us become laughingstocks? Our warriors are dying, Malar said quietly, his battle-worn face grim. His wounds seemed to pain him as he shifted his weight. Their guerrilla tactics confound our best hunters. They strike from shadows, vanish into tunnels, use our own technology against us. Each defeat makes them bolder. Last week, they turned one of our own bases into a trap. Zextal displayed holographic images of destroyed Krathak vessels, the red warning indicators painting the chamber in an ominous glow. Debris fields floated in space, once mighty ships reduced to twisted metal. They've developed electromagnetic weapons that specifically target our ship's vulnerabilities. At this rate, they may soon threaten our orbital positions. Some human vessels have already breached our defensive lines. They're becoming more aggressive with each victory. Fear, an emotion rarely seen in Krathak leadership, flickered across several elder faces. Some shifted uncomfortably in their ancient seats, their claws scratching against the stone armrests. Then we double our efforts, Varrock declared, pacing like a caged beast, his talons leaving scratch marks on the floor. We send more ships, more hunters. We will not be humiliated by mere prey. We'll burn their cities to ash. To what end? Elder Kavax demanded, rising from his seat with surprising speed for one so old. How many more warriors must we sacrifice to your pride? How many more families must we tell their children died for nothing? Varrock's eyes blazed with fanatical intensity, spittle flying from his fangs. As many as it takes. I hereby order all Dominion fleets near Earth to intensify their hunts. We will break them, or we will die trying. The Great Hunt demands nothing less. This is about our very way of life. The council chamber erupted in shocked protests and angry shouts, but Varrock was already storming out, his boots leaving scorch marks on the ancient floor. Several elders rose to their feet, shouting after him. Zextal watched him go, clutching his datapad tightly, its screen showing yet another defeated Krathak fleet. The humans weren't just surviving anymore, they were winning, and Varrock's pride would only lead to more bloodshed on both sides. The question was, how many would die before the Dominion admitted the truth about their chosen prey? How many more warriors would fall before they accepted that humans weren't prey at all? As the Krathak wrestled with hard truths, humanity prepared its next bold strike. A specialized team took to the skies, determined to seize the enemy's own vessels. The hybrid craft glided silently through Earth's upper atmosphere, its modified Krathak drive humming with an otherworldly resonance that made the deck plates vibrate ever so slightly. Captain Nwosu's hands were steady on the controls, but sweat beaded on his forehead as he guided the stolen vessel through the delicate approach. The stars above twinkled through wisps of the last traces of atmosphere, a reminder of just how close they were to the void of space. All systems nominal, whispered Lieutenant Rosa Martinez from the engineering station, her fingers dancing across the alien controls. Their sensors can't get a clear read on us. The jamming field is working better than we hoped. She tapped a few more buttons, fine-tuning their electronic camouflage. The holographic displays cast an eerie blue glow across her determined face. The massive Krathak cruiser loomed ahead, its dark hull blocking out the stars like an eclipse. Its surface bristled with weapon ports and sensor arrays, each one capable of reducing their small craft to atoms. 20 human commandos crouched in the cargo hold, their breath fogging their visors as they double-checked their gear one last time. The air was thick with tension. Some clutched Lucky Charms or whispered quiet prayers. A few fiddled with family photos tucked into their armor. Incoming transmission, Martinez reported, her voice tight. They're requesting identification. Right on schedule. Her hands hovered over the comm controls, ready to respond. The alien script scrolled across her screen in angry red characters. Nwosu activated the modified comm system, his heart pounding. The message they broadcast was a garbled mix of Krathak authentication codes, stolen from the downed scout ship during the raid in Singapore. Static crackled through the speakers, making the alien language sound even more harsh and guttural. Every person on the bridge held their breath. The cruiser's response came quickly, the alien voice harsh and demanding. Unscheduled arrival. State your purpose. The words carried the unmistakable tone of irritated authority. The translation software struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire alien speech. Emergency landing required, system malfunction. Nwosu transmitted back in broken Krathak, mimicking the clipped tones they'd studied for weeks. The plan hinged on their enemy's rigid hierarchy. No low-ranking crew member would dare refuse a potential superior's vessel in distress, not if they valued their status. Their entire society was built on strict chains of command. One wrong inflection could give them away. Tense seconds passed as the team held their breath. The cruiser's docking bay doors slowly opened with a faint glimmer of force fields, creating a translucent bubble of atmosphere in the void of space. The shimmering barrier rippled like water in sunlight. They bought it, Martinez whispered, relief evident in her voice. They're guiding us in. Auto-landing systems engaged. Her fingers flew across the controls, making minor adjustments to match the docking computer's instructions. Warning lights flashed as their craft passed through the force field. The hybrid craft settled onto the deck with a gentle thud that barely rattled their teeth. Through the viewport, Nwosu counted only 6 Krathak crew members approaching, exactly as their intelligence suggested for a standard greeting party. Their tall, armored forms moved with military precision, weapons held at parade rest. The aliens' crystalline armor glinted under the harsh bay lights. Weapons free, Nwosu commanded softly into his comm. Remember, non-lethal if possible. We need this ship intact and functional. He checked his own stun weapon one last time, feeling the familiar weight in his hands. The commandos moved like ghosts, their modified stun weapons dropping the greeting party before any alarm could be raised. Years of fighting on Earth had taught humans exactly where Krathak nerve clusters were most vulnerable. The aliens fell without a sound, their armor clattering softly against the deck. Blue energy crackled briefly around their fallen forms. Bridge is 2 decks up, Martinez said, consulting the stolen schematics on her tablet. Security center to the left. Watch for the patrol patterns we mapped. She highlighted several potential trouble spots on the shared tactical display. Red dots showed enemy positions while green marked their objectives. The team split efficiently, moving with practiced ease. Half secured the critical systems, while Nwosu led the bridge assault. They encountered only scattered resistance. The Krathak crew was caught completely off guard by enemies appearing inside their own ship. Their rigid training hadn't prepared them for this kind of infiltration. A few tried to fight back, but were quickly subdued. The sound of stun weapons and falling bodies echoed through the corridors. Bridge secured, Nwosu announced 15 minutes later. The Krathak captain lay unconscious, and human operators were already learning the ship's controls, their training kicking in. The alien interfaces were complicated but familiar after months of simulation. All teams report. Engineering lockdown, reactors stable. We've got full power control. Their tech is amazing, Captain. Weapons control secured. Defense systems disabled. Their guns are cold. You should see the firepower on this thing. Detention level clear. No prisoners found. Area sanitized. They never saw us coming. All Krathak crew accounted for and contained in Cargo Bay 3. They're not going anywhere. Stun restraints are holding strong. Nwosu allowed himself a small smile as he activated the long-range communicator. He kept the message brief. Exactly as planned. No room for interception. Their first real victory in this long war was finally at hand. The bridge crew watched with barely contained excitement. Earth Command, this is Nwosu. We have a ship. That single transmission shook the Dominion's confidence. On their flagship, Krathak officers scrambled to understand how mere prey had captured prize technology. Zextal's claws clicked nervously against the display console as the report flickered before their eyes. The images were unmistakable. A Krathak cruiser, broadcasting conflicting identification codes while clearly under human control. The ship's movement patterns were erratic yet purposeful, nothing like the disciplined formations that Krathak commanders demanded. "Impossible," Malar growled, his scarred face twisted with rage. "These prey beasts cannot pilot our vessels. Our systems are too complex, too refined for their primitive minds." His massive frame trembled with barely contained fury. But they had. The evidence was clear in the tactical readouts. The humans hadn't just disabled the ship, they'd mastered its systems with frightening speed. Weapon systems, navigation, even the complex shield modulation protocols, all were being operated with growing expertise. Zextal felt their inner eyelids flutter with anxiety. The humans show remarkable adaptive capabilities. Their neural plasticity allows them to. They pulled up detailed brain scan data from earlier specimens. "Spare me your scientific babbling." Malar slammed his fist on the table, cracking its surface. "Varrock must authorize immediate retaliation. We should glass their cities from orbit. Burn them all." The other scientists in the command center kept their heads down, but Zextal noticed their unease. Mandibles twitched and antennae quivered as they processed this unprecedented development. The traditional hunt had evolved into something unprecedented. Even the Dominion Council members watched the tactical displays with poorly concealed concern, their proud postures beginning to slump. Strange signal patterns appeared on the monitoring screens, dancing like angry insects across the displays. The captured cruiser was broadcasting interference across multiple Krathak frequencies, scrambling fleet communications. Within hours, confusion spread through the Dominion ranks as contradicting orders bounced between ships. Battle groups turned on each other, unsure which commands were genuine. Zextal retreated to the data archives, mind racing through possible scenarios. Their earlier warnings about human capabilities had been ignored, dismissed as overcautious theorizing. Now, the price of that arrogance was becoming clear. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were turning Krathak technology against its makers with savage efficiency. In the privacy of the archive chamber, Zextal accessed a secure terminal, checking twice to ensure no others were present. Years of studying human behavior had revealed patterns, weaknesses in Krathak systems that humans could exploit. Information that could save lives on both sides, if used correctly. The weight of generations of tradition pressed down on their shoulders. With trembling claws, Zextal began encoding a message. Not in traditional Krathak script, but in a pattern the humans' adaptive algorithms might decode. Hidden within routine data packets, they embedded crucial details about shield harmonics, weapon cycles, and command protocols. Each character felt like a betrayal, yet also like a step toward something greater. "May the ancestors forgive me," Zextal whispered, transmitting the encoded message on a frequency the captured cruiser would detect. Their antennae drooped with the weight of their choice. For the first time in Krathak history, one of their own had chosen to aid their prey. The old ways were crumbling, and Zextal could only hope they were helping to build something better from the ruins. Sensing the Krathak's fragile hold on power, Andrea and her allies convened a global council. With new momentum, they prepared to rally every hidden resistance cell on Earth. Commander Andrea Carlson stood before the makeshift communications array, her heart pounding as thousands of screens flickered to life. Each display showed faces from different corners of the world, resistance leaders from Mumbai to Mexico City, their expressions a mix of hope and worry, all gathered for this crucial moment. The dim emergency lights cast long shadows across the concrete walls of the underground bunker, and the constant drip of water from somewhere in the ceiling marked time like a metronome. "We've done the impossible," she began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. The dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights planning this operation. Her coffee-stained uniform and messy hair showed she hadn't left the command center in days. Thanks to Captain Nwosu and his team, we now have a Krathak ship in our control. A burst of excited chatter filled the channels, voices overlapping in different languages and accents. Some cheered, others whispered in disbelief, and a few broke into tears of joy. Andrea raised her hand, and the voices fell silent like a conductor quieting an orchestra. But one ship isn't enough, she continued, leaning forward on the worn metal desk that creaked under her weight. The surface was covered in paper maps and handwritten notes, the old-school backup for when digital systems failed. We need every person, every resource we can muster. Dr. Lee, please share what you've learned. Dr. Lee's image appeared on the main screen, his lab coat stained with grease and burn marks. His hands were bandaged from recent work on the alien tech. The captured ship systems have revealed critical weaknesses in Krathak orbital defenses, but exploiting them will require coordination on a scale we've never attempted. From Brazil, a resistance leader spoke up, the sound of waves crashing behind him. The salty air had rusted much of their equipment, but they'd kept fighting. My people are converting old fishing boats into weapon platforms. We can help. The Australian outback camps have stockpiles of electromagnetic parts, another voice added, dust storms visible through their bunker window. Their faces were weathered from the harsh conditions, but their eyes burned with determination. Marcus Reyes, speaking from a hidden bunker in Moscow, shared his own report. The cold made his breath visible as he spoke, and his people huddled in thick coats behind him. We've got thousands of volunteers working around the clock building makeshift artillery from salvaged metal. It's not pretty, but it works. Andrea nodded, feeling a surge of pride at humanity's resourcefulness. Her fingers traced the edge of an old family photo on her desk, a reminder of why they fought. This is what we need, everyone contributing what they can. But we face serious challenges. Food is scarce in many regions. Medical supplies are running low. Singapore can help with medical distribution, a woman offered, her face lit by emergency lights. The sounds of children playing echoed in the background of her transmission. We still have underground supply lines running through Southeast Asia. And the Canadian resistance has been stockpiling food, another leader added, his thick beard frosted with ice. Behind him, volunteers packed supplies into insulated containers. We can share. Captain Nwosu's transmission came through from orbit, his voice slightly distorted by static. The captured ship's alien interior glowed with an eerie blue light behind him. The ship's holding steady. We're learning more about their systems every hour, but we need to move fast. They'll notice something's wrong soon. Andrea took a deep breath and activated the main tactical display. A holographic map of Earth's orbit appeared, showing Krathak fleet positions like red stars against the blue glow of their planet. The projector hummed and flickered. Another piece of salvaged tech kept running through human ingenuity. This is why I've called you all here, she said, her fingers tracing paths through the enemy formations. The hologram cast strange shadows across her determined face. We're launching Operation Starfall, a coordinated strike against their orbital superiority. Every region, every resistance cell, working as one. She outlined the plan, watching determination spread across thousands of faces. Some nodded grimly, others whispered prayers, but all showed the same fierce resolve. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking back their world. The air grew thick with tension and purpose. As the meeting concluded, reports flooded in from across the globe. Weapons being forged from scrap metal, old satellites repurposed for communication, communities sharing their last resources to support the effort. Even children were helping, gathering materials and carrying messages between hidden bases. The spirit of humanity burned bright in every transmission. We launch in 72 hours, Andrea announced, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's future. May God help us all. The screens went dark one by one, leaving her alone in the command center. The hum of equipment filled the silence as she studied the battle plans one last time. A rat scurried across the floor, another reminder of how far civilization had fallen. and how far they had to climb back. Operation Starfall was now in motion. Humanity was going on the offensive, and there would be no turning back. At last, the long-awaited assault began. High above the planet, humanity's makeshift fleet braced for the fiercest battle yet. The darkness of space lit up with bursts of weapons fire as Earth's ragtag fleet rose to meet the Krathak armada. Captain Nwosu's hands gripped the controls of the captured cruiser, his knuckles white with tension as he led a mix of modified jets and hybrid ships upward through the atmosphere. The cobbled-together fleet looked like junkyard leftovers compared to the sleek Krathak vessels, but they packed one hell of a punch. Despite their makeshift appearance, each ship bristled with repurposed weapons and homemade upgrades, a testament to human ingenuity and desperation. "All wings check in," he called over the comm, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. One by one, squadron leaders responded, their voices a blend of accents from every corner of Earth, from Texas drawls to Nigerian lilts, each one echoing a unique blend of determination and anxiety. From her underground command center, Commander Andrea Carlson watched multiple holographic displays tracking the battle, her face bathed in their blue glow. Her fingers tapped nervously on the armrest, but her voice remained steady. "Remember the plan," she broadcast, her tone firm but encouraging. "Hit and fade. Don't let them pin you down. We're wasps stinging a bear. Keep moving. Trust your training and trust each other." The Krathak response was immediate and overwhelming. Massive warships moved to encircle the human fleet, their weapons charging with an ominous red glow that lit up space like artificial suns. The sheer size and power of the enemy ships were intimidating, but the humans held their ground, ready to prove that size wasn't everything. "Now," Andrea ordered, leaning forward in her chair, her eyes reflecting the dance of light from the holographic displays. Dozens of small ships broke formation, scattering in seemingly random directions like startled fish. The Krathak ships turned to track them, their targeting systems struggling to keep up, only to have their sensors suddenly overwhelmed by thousands of decoy signatures flooding their screens. The human ships, small and agile, darted between the lumbering Krathak vessels, their movements coordinated with a precision that belied their ragtag appearance. "EMP burst pattern alpha," Dr. Lee called out from her station, her fingers dancing across the controls like a pianist playing a complex concerto. The hybrid ships released synchronized pulses, creating ripples of electrical disruption through the Krathak formation. The energy waves lit up the battlefield like silent lightning, momentarily disabling the alien ships and giving the humans a precious window of opportunity. Aboard the Dominion flagship, Varrock snarled in frustration, slamming his fist against his command chair. "Impossible. How are they coordinating these attacks? These primitives shouldn't be capable of such tactics." His voice echoed through the bridge, a mix of anger and disbelief. Around him, crew members scrambled to adjust their strategies, their confidence shaken by the unexpected prowess of the human fleet. Millar studied the tactical display with growing concern, his mandibles twitching nervously. "Sir, we're losing sensor lock on multiple vectors. Their jamming technology has improved significantly. They're exploiting our weaknesses with a precision we've never encountered before." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease, a realization that the humans were not the easy prey they had anticipated. Meanwhile, Zextal watched from a secondary bridge, taking detailed notes as the humans demonstrated their adaptability. They had clearly studied Krathak battle doctrine and were systematically exploiting every weakness with an efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. Each move the humans made seemed to be a step ahead, a dance of strategy and cunning that left the Krathak struggling to keep up. Captain Nwosu's voice crackled across all frequencies. "Second wave, begin your runs." Smaller craft darted between the massive Krathak ships like angry hornets, targeting communication arrays and weapon systems with deadly accuracy. The stolen Krathak tech, combined with human ingenuity, was proving to be a devastating combination, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of humanity. The space around Earth became a chaos of light and shadow, a deadly dance of ships and energy weapons. Human ships danced through gaps in Krathak formations, striking vital systems before vanishing into the void like ghosts. Each time the Dominion adapted their tactics, the humans shifted to a new pattern of attack, staying 3 steps ahead, their movements fluid and unpredictable. "They're breaking formation," Andrea announced, a rare smile crossing her face as she watched the Krathak lines crumble under the assault. "Push the advantage, don't let them regroup." Her voice was a beacon of hope, a rallying cry that echoed through the fleet, galvanizing the human forces. Varrock's flagship shuddered as another volley struck home, sparks flying from damaged consoles. "All ships, regroup at coordinates." His order was cut short as human ships struck from 3 directions at once, their coordinated attack cutting through his defenses like a hot knife through butter. The bridge erupted into chaos, alarms blaring and crew members scrambling to contain the damage. "Sir," Millar reported, his voice tight with barely contained alarm, "we've lost contact with the entire Western Fleet Wing. They're either destroyed or disabled." His mandibles twitched nervously, a stark contrast to his usual stoic demeanor. The realization of their losses was a heavy blow, a testament to the humans' unexpected capability. Varrock's mandibles clicked in rage as he gave the order he'd never imagined speaking. "All ships, fall back. Regroup at the secondary position. These humans," he spat the word like a curse, "will pay for this humiliation." His voice echoed through the bridge, a mix of anger and frustration, a promise of retribution that rang hollow in the face of their defeat. As the massive Krathak vessels began their retreat, their engines burning bright against the darkness, Captain Nwosu's battered cruiser transmitted a simple message to Earth. "Phase 1 complete. The skies are ours." In the background, cheers erupted from every human ship in the fleet, a chorus of triumph and relief that echoed through the void, a testament to humanity's resilience and defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. Stunned by the sudden loss, the Krathak flagship reeled in orbit. The once unassailable hunters struggled to regroup under Earth's relentless onslaught. The Krathak flagship hung in orbit, its once proud silhouette now scarred from battle. Scorch marks and twisted metal marred its sleek hull, testament to humanity's fierce resistance. Pieces of shattered armor plating drifted alongside debris from destroyed fighter craft, like a cloud of metallic confetti. Inside the vessel's command center, Varrock paced with barely contained fury, while holographic projections of council elders flickered around him, their blue-tinted forms casting eerie shadows across the dimly lit chamber. The air felt thick with tension. "This is unprecedented," one elder declared, their scaled features twisted in concern. Their tail lashed back and forth in agitation, knocking over a data terminal. "No species has ever shown such defiance, such ability to adapt. They turn our own weapons against us. They've even improved them." "They are prey," Varrock snarled, slamming a clawed hand on the command console. The impact made nearby officers flinch and duck their heads, some nearly falling from their stations. "Nothing more. We cannot let them mock our traditions like this. Our ancestors would be ashamed. We should bring in the entire fleet." Zextal stepped forward, datapad in hand, trying to keep their voice steady despite Varrock's intimidating presence. Sweat beaded on their scales, making them glisten in the dim light. "The humans have captured 3 of our cruisers intact. They've reversed-engineered our propulsion systems in weeks, not years. They've developed countermeasures to our weapons. These are not the actions of mere prey, council members. The data suggests we gravely underestimated them. Their learning curve is unlike anything we've seen. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered." On Earth, Commander Andrea Carlson stood in the Colorado Command Center, surrounded by screens showing the scattered Krathak fleet. Battle damage reports scrolled past, highlighting humanity's victories. Empty coffee cups and energy drink cans littered nearby desks, evidence of the endless hours spent coordinating their defense. Her uniform was wrinkled from days of wear, but her stance remained proud. Her voice was steady as she broadcast their terms. "To the Dominion Council, you've seen what humanity can do. We've broken your ships, stolen your technology, and beaten you at your own game. Withdraw completely from Earth space, or we'll bring this fight to your worlds next, and trust me, we're quick learners, real quick. You won't like what happens next. The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs. Some elders gestured frantically at each other while others sat frozen in shock. Their ceremonial robes rustled with their agitated movements, gems and metals catching the light. An elder raised her hand for silence, her authority immediately quieting the chamber. The silence felt heavy, almost physical. The Dominion cannot risk further losses. Our authority among client species already wavers. The humans have proven problematic. Most problematic indeed. They share their victories with our other subjects. You cannot seriously consider, Varrock started, but another elder cut him off with a sharp gesture, baring razor-sharp teeth in warning. The Huntmaster's crest deflated slightly. We hereby authorize a temporary cessation of hostilities, the elder announced, voice heavy with resignation. His ornate collar seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. The great hunt on Earth is suspended pending further deliberation. The costs are too high. We've lost too many ships, too many warriors. Varrock's scales darkened with rage, turning almost black. His chest heaved with barely controlled fury, claws extending and retracting. I refuse to. This is a council order, the elder stated firmly, drawing himself up to full height, crest flaring with dangerous colors. You will comply, Huntmaster, or face replacement. Choose carefully. Your pride is not worth the Dominion's stability. Andrea's response was immediate and clear, her words carrying the weight of Earth's unified resistance. A temporary suspension isn't enough. There will be no peace without your unconditional retreat from Earth space. You have 6 hours to begin withdrawal. We're watching your every move. Don't test us. We've got our fingers on the trigger, and believe me, we're done playing nice. The council members exchanged glances, their pride warring with pragmatism. One by one they nodded, some more reluctantly than others. Varrock stood rigid, his pride visibly wounded, but unable to countermand the council's authority. His claws dug into his palms, drawing drops of dark blood that dripped onto the polished floor with soft patters. The Dominion. The lead elder paused, the words clearly difficult, each syllable seeming to pain him like physical blows. His ancient eyes looked tired. The Dominion acknowledges humanity's right to defend its territory. We will withdraw. May the stars mark this day. He added under his breath, voice thick with shame, and may our ancestors forgive us. We have failed them utterly. With the Dominion forced into retreat, final negotiations loomed. The stage was set aboard the very cruiser humanity had daringly seized. The massive observation deck of the captured Krathak cruiser had been converted into a makeshift diplomatic chamber. Earth's blue sphere filled the viewport, clouds swirling across its surface like brushstrokes on canvas. A breathtaking reminder of what humanity had fought so hard to protect. The scars of orbital bombardment were still visible from space, dark patches that would take decades to heal. Andrea Carlson stood tall in her formal uniform, her face betraying no emotion as she faced the Dominion Council representatives. Her medals caught the starlight, each one earned during humanity's desperate struggle. The burns on her neck, partially hidden by her collar, told their own story of close calls and fierce battles. Dr. Lee stood beside her, datapad in hand, while Captain Nwosu kept a watchful eye from near the entrance, his hand never far from his sidearm. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. The terms are non-negotiable, Andrea said, her voice firm as steel. All Krathak vessels will withdraw from Earth space immediately. The practice of hunting sentient species ends today. No exceptions, no loopholes. And yes, that includes what you call training exercises. The lead council elder, scales gleaming under the starlight like polished armor, nodded slowly. His ancient eyes held a mix of respect and resignation. Several of his scales were cracked, battle damage from the recent fighting. The Dominion accepts these terms. The Great Hunt is officially disbanded. effective immediately. Varrock watched from the shadows, mandibles clicking in barely contained rage. His claws flexed and unflexed against his ceremonial armor, but even he knew better than to speak out. The humans had earned this victory with blood and courage. His own arm was in a sling, a reminder of how dangerous cornered prey could be. Zextal stepped forward, acting as witness. The xenobiologist's movements were careful, deliberate. The data pad in their hands shook slightly. Let it be recorded that on this day, humanity joins the galactic community as equals, not prey. The old ways end here. The signing ceremony was brief but historic. As data tablets were exchanged and biometric signatures confirmed, messages of hope spread across Earth like wildfire. In hidden bunkers and recovering cities, humans celebrated their hard-won freedom with tears and laughter. Kids who had grown up knowing only war looked up at the sky without fear for the first time. "This is more than just Earth's victory," Dr. Lee said, addressing the gathered delegates. His voice carried the weight of history. "This marks a fundamental shift in how species interact among the stars. The age of predator and prey is over. We're better than that now." Already encrypted communications had begun arriving from other worlds. Dozens of species who had lived in fear of the Dominion's hunts now looked to Earth with newfound hope. Some offered alliance, others asked for protection, all of them inspired by humanity's defiance. A few even sent technical data about Dominion weak points just in case. As the ceremony concluded, Andrea noticed Zextal typing rapidly on a datapad. The xenobiologist's final report would mark the end of an era. Humanity had not just survived, they had forced the mighty Dominion to change its ways through sheer determination and grit. The report would go down in history as the human factor. Outside the viewport, the first human deep space vessels prepared for launch, their hulls gleaming with promise. Built from a mixture of Earth and Krathak technology, they represented humanity's next step into the cosmos. Their names reflected humanity's spirit: never say die, second chance, and remember Earth. No longer trapped by fear, they would venture forth to ensure no species would ever again threaten their home. The Dominion Council members filed out, their ornate robes sweeping the deck, followed by a still seething Varrock. One of them stumbled slightly on the unfamiliar human-modified deck plating. Zextal remained behind, looking thoughtfully at the assembled humans. "You have changed everything," Zextal said simply, mandibles twitching with what might have been admiration. "My people never saw it coming." Andrea smiled, thinking of all they had lost and gained. "That's what humans do best. We never know when to quit. Now who's hungry? I hear the mess hall is serving victory pizza."